Don't get me wrong, this video being made does not mean that I think that Brady Tkachuk is a better long-term player or that Jesperi Kotkaniemi was a bad pick at 3. This video is simply exploring the hypothetical what-if situation on whether or not things would have been extraordinarily different if the Montreal Canadiens drafted Brady Tkachuk 3rd overall instead of Kotkaniemi. What is up, viewer out there watching this video? Like Rocks back here, and today it's another new day. Some more hypotheticals right up in here, this time in the realm of Montreal Canadiens draftees. It's actually kind of funny because about a year or two ago, actually, I think it was just a year ago, I made a video asking the question on what if my favorite hockey team, the Vancouver Canucks, drafted Tkachuk instead of Olli Juolevi. That was the Matthew Tkachuk draft in 2016. Now, it's a few years down the line and we're talking about another one of my favorite teams in another what if they drafted Tkachuk scenario. So it's actually really funny how the teams I cheer for do not get these powerful wingers in the Tkachuk family, and they pass on them. But ultimately, let's go into the context as to why I am bringing this up. Because the 2018 NHL Entry Draft was quite a while ago, but it was only 2 years ago. There are still a lot of time to go forward with the careers of these hockey players. So, with that established, what is it about Brady Tkachuk that I'm thinking about here? Well, it's the fact that Brady Tkachuk went 4th overall in the 2018 NHL Entry Draft to the Ottawa Senators. The team that picked right before Brady Tkachuk was the Habs, and they took Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Now, Kotkaniemi, along with Dahlin and Svechnikov, these were some of the few guys to make immediate NHL debuts once the draft finished up. Another one of those guys to do so was Brady Tkachuk, and Tkachuk made his presence known with the Ottawa Senators, and he was an immediate play driver, force giver, and overall just very positive player on the team in regards to how he was performing on the ice. The Ottawa Senators were not great, but at the same time, Brady Tkachuk was giving fans a reason to cheer about the future and actually be excited for what was to come. So, Brady Tkachuk in his first year with the Ottawa Senators had 45 points, 22 goals in 71 games played. He also had 75 penalty minutes, so he was averaging about a minute of penalty time per game, but of course you can't do that, so let's just say a penalty every 2 games. This season, though, Brady Tkachuk had the exact same production. 44 points, 71 games played. He had the same amount of assists, but he had 1 fewer goal. The big takeaway, though, is the penalty minutes, because Brady Tkachuk this past season had 106 penalty minutes compared to last season where he only had 75. The guy was an absolute blank disturber this season, and in fact, he had so many shots as well. I remember NHL people and media people talking over and over and over again about how Brady Tkachuk was one of the only people to have so many shots and so many penalty minutes in the same season. If we go to NHL.com and we take a look at the stats, we take a look at the shooting stats, Brady Tkachuk has more shots than Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Patrick Laine, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Artemi Panarin. The only guys who have more shots than Brady Tkachuk's 259 this season are Nathan MacKinnon, Ovechkin, Pacioretty, Matthews, Pasternak, Kane, and Roman Josi. Darn, Roman Josi is up there as a D-man. That's crazy. But Brady Tkachuk has been a very positive play-driving winger for the Ottawa Senators, and even though they're a poor team, Brady Tkachuk is still one of the highlights of that squad for sure. Now, the big question is, if he had been drafted by Montreal instead, what would have happened? If we take a look at it just from the numbers point of view, Brady Tkachuk's 45 points in his freshman year would have been 8th on the Canadiens in terms of total points if you carry over 45 to 45. Eighth on the Canadiens in the real-life season after the draft was Jesperi Kotkaniemi, so it actually aligns really nicely. But the idea that we should bring up is whether or not Brady Tkachuk would actually have a better year than Jesperi did. For the most part, it's easy to say that he would. He had a higher points per game than Kotkaniemi playing on a worse team. Devil's advocate though, Jesperi Kotkaniemi was in a place where his teammates were better than the Ottawa Senators squad that Brady Tkachuk had to play with, and as a result, it could be argued that Jesperi Kotkaniemi's deployment, playing time, and overall role on the team was significantly lower than Tkachuk's was with the Sens. At the same time though, if there's one thing that Montreal Canadiens fans love to see on their team, it's guys who work hard, who grind bodies, and who aren't afraid to play with a physical edge. That's why guys like Gallagher and Byron are so loved in Montreal, because they're always going at it and they're always making a physical impact. Brady Tkachuk is a guy who, in my opinion, would do the same kind of thing playing with Montreal, and in fact, he would probably establish himself either in the middle six or in the top six, with either Domi or Danault as his center. Who knows how things would have really played out, but there was a lot of forward diversity with the Habs, and adding a guy like Brady Tkachuk who was capable of getting 40 points on the Senators would have been a really nice thing. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, the Habs are able to squeak into a playoff spot with a Brady Tkachuk in their lineup instead of a Kotkaniemi, and that's strictly just based off of the idea that Brady Tkachuk brings an element of the sport that Jesperi Kotkaniemi simply does not. The physicality, the aggressiveness, the body checking, etc. Who knows if that would have been enough to allow the Canadiens to win maybe a few more games, but I think in the second year, this is where things would really start to come across as more easy to predict than the first year, because Kotkaniemi's second year was not great. He didn't really look in place. There were times where he looked like he kind of lost his edge, and he got sent down to Laval for a reason. Brady Tkachuk, on the other hand, had a very, very similar second year to his first year. And that's including the so-called sophomore slump that happens when other teams have all this footage of a first-year player to look at and review and use to prepare for their second year. If Brady Tkachuk was on the Habs this year with the same numbers, he would have been a top 3 player in scoring. Yeah. He would have had the same amount of points as Max Domi, and maybe even more if he was playing in the top 6 with Montreal, rather than with, the Senators. So, with Brady Tkachuk this past season, I think it's easy to say that the Habs probably would have won a few more games just based off of how much of an impact that a Brady Tkachuk could have when there's no Kotkaniemi on your team anymore because he's not there. Who knows if the Habs are fighting for a playoff spot or if they're in a playoff spot. If Brady Tkachuk came to Montreal instead of Kotkaniemi, I think it would be fair to say the first few years of their development would have seen a better Tkachuk than Kotkaniemi, in the NHL at least. Long-term, things may be completely different. Long-term, Kotkaniemi could become an 80, 90-point center, and Brady Tkachuk could max out as a 60-point guy, who knows? But in the short term and what we've had immediately, Brady Tkachuk would have and has been the better player out of the two just in general, in terms of how they're able to play the game, how they're able to translate what was their draft game up into the NHL, and how they've been able to adapt to the NHL. A lot of that does have to do with circumstance. Brady Tkachuk is a big physical force, Kotkaniemi is kind of slimmer, he's kind of thinner, and he's not meant to play that way. But obviously, you have to take a look at things from all angles. So comment down below what you think. Just based off of the first 2 years of these players, who would you rather have on the Habs? Especially with the development of Nick Suzuki, would you still want to have a Kotkaniemi? Or would a Brady Tkachuk seem more valuable to you at this point in time, and maybe even for the long-term future, who knows? So, comment down below what you think. It's a very weird discussion. I know Habs fans love Kotkaniemi, but if you were given the chance to redo that, knowing what you know about Suzuki, would you do it? I personally really don't know. Maybe I'll be swayed by some of your comments. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Social that Trolls 99, and bye.